That's interesting. People, I'm looking at my screen over here. I'm pointing at it. It's over here. How do people know that I'm about to be online before I click go online? Anyway, these are the places that I visited in the world. I went to Canada once briefly, and then Bermuda, and these are the keys. And these are the places that I've visited. I actually need to add a little bit more, so I'm just gonna go AMA. Ask me anything about these places. Reeve Cody 69 says I'm outside your door. You know what? Do me a favor. Do me a favor. This is the Grand Canyon. I went to the north end of the Grand Canyon. Hell, math. Did you ever kill a bug and get sad about it? No. Nope. Why would I be sad about it? Bugs deserve it. They have it coming. They're even called bugs. Their name is the name of bugs is bugs. We gave them a disgusting name. Okay, what cities have you been to in Oregon? Good question. So, um, I took Route 5 up and I went to Ashland, which was just beautiful. That's like that's the place to live if you can. And then Eugene, and I stopped there briefly, and then Salem, and I stayed in a Motel 6 in Salem, and then over here there was a town I believe called Dallas. I believe it was called Dallas, and then there was another town that began with an M, and I visited those places. And I think those were the major places that I went in Oregon, and Ashland was just stunning. It was like if you could design a world to live in, it would be Ashland. It's just a gorgeous place. Pyro Buscus says, "Can you illustrate how women often say one thing and do another? Yeah, but not tonight. That requires like a lot of sheets of paper. That's a lot of trial and error. That's going to be about as difficult as Zones was. Familiar with the fourth turning? Yeah, I know what the fourth turning is. Is the hard men, bad times, good stuff, bad day, whatever. Uh, I'm familiar with the fourth turning. It makes sense. I don't know if there's evidence for it, but it makes sense. It's like one of those things that's like, oh, it makes sense. Did you like Salt Lake City? No. So you can tell I stopped in Salt Lake City. I was expecting Salt Lake City to be like a city, but clean, and it just wasn't. It was like it had the same kind of decay as the rest of the cities. And I was like, well, it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's as bad as like LA and New York. And well, why would anyone want to be in the middle of nowhere in a city that's also kind of rotting? XVNW asks, "Who do you think is winning the Drake and Kendrick beef?" I kind of know who Drake is. I don't know who Kendrick is, and I don't know what their beef is. It's a bad question for me. Yeah, incoherent. My friend here is incoherent. Says he called Salt Lake City Portland Light, which is about right. Trees are made of wood asks, "What did you do with your leveling up to be an 8? How much of that did change your how much did that change your daily life? And was it just COVID that nuked that, or do you think it wasn't worth getting back to the peak level?" So COVID didn't nuke my being an 8. That was just age. It was just like getting old and my hairline receding and, like just gradually just losing attractiveness with age. COVID like burned my life to the ground. Like I spent time building a life and then COVID shut it off. What did you do with your leveling up to be an 8? It was mostly losing fat, building muscle, learning social skills, dressing better, and getting skill with specifically with women, talking to women. So once I looked good, my body and my clothing, and I was like smooth, smoothness from zones. It was like women treated me really well. Even very, very attractive women treated me very well for a long time, even though I was broke. And then as I lost my attractiveness and remained broke, then I just went like 8, 7, 6, bleh. And then, now I'm famous and like, rich, like above average. I'm doing it better than average. And so I went up again in value, but not for bad boy stuff. When will this wave of feminism end? Someone asks. Asura. When the bad times come, on the fourth turning. Reeve Cody says, I lost a lot of weight due to being motivated by a girl. Yep, that helps. I'm talking from 220 to 160. It's great. Lost motivation to go further because things didn't pan out. How do I get motivated to go further to get cut? You have to imagine the rewards. If you, so Reeve or whatever, his name is Rev. Um, if if you lost weight and got rewards, and that was good enough for you, and now you're like, well, what's my motivation? You just have to imagine that it'll happen again. You have to believe that it'll happen again. If a good thing happened to you before, why wouldn't it happen again? There's a chance. There's probably a large chance. You have to focus on that. Cole Licky says thoughts on the Pacific Northwest. Beautiful. Especially like, I guess I should use my pencil. Like this area, sort of east of Seattle. There's a place called Snoqualmie, which is like the nicest place I've ever seen to live. There's a Snoqualmie River, and it has like three forks. It goes like this, and then there's like a north fork, a middle fork, and a south fork, and that's like right there. And it might be the nicest place I've ever seen to live. And then he says Eastern Oregon. I didn't see Eastern Oregon. I didn't go out this way. I stayed mostly like on Route 5 and to the west of it. So I haven't seen it. But this whole area, Seattle and the pine forest area over here and then coastal Oregon and California is like 10 of 10. It's just one of the most beautiful places in the world. Would love to be back there. Mm. Penfold makes a good comment. He says, in America, it's illegal to insult America, but illegal to insult Israel. Yeah, they just passed a law for that. I mean, what is that? Seems strange. Where Hawaii at? I mean, I haven't been there, man. Dollar Trifecta asks, where Hawaii at? I didn't go to Hawaii or Alaska. Someone asks, is it worth being a good man in this economy? It depends what you think the value of being good is. If you want rewards for it, then no. But if you view yourself as being a part of the great circle of life, then yes. Relic Sanctium says, hi, Homath, first time commentator, love your work. How did you develop your drawing and illustration style? Well, have I got the story for you? Because I didn't develop nothing. I just went like, okay, men have shoulders, right? And then women have hips. So there you go. There's a trapezoid. And there's a trapezoid. I didn't really develop anything. I just had a video go viral, and then um like the reason that this is my logo is because I used to depict women as having bows in their hair for some reason, like little like babies. I wasn't really thinking. So if you go back to the beginning of my TikTok, you can see me develop. Oops, stupid develop my drawing style in real time. It's not a very sophisticated drawing style. It's like disgusting and crude and stupid, which is hilarious because I'm teaching like deep lessons about life and life experience with just like here's a dog. Arf. And people are like, "How did you develop your drawing style?" I don't know. I've never drawn a dog before. It's just like what they look like to me. Arf. I guess I took an art class in high school. I don't know, man. Trudge Mank says, "I like when women wear bows in their hair." That's great information, Trudge Mank. Um, I don't care for bows, but good for you. Lego Mon and stuff says, "Do you think that a 30-plus-year-old low body count woman is better than a hypersexual 20 something?" It depends who you are and what you want, but usually, yeah. Like I would if I was single, I would pick a 33-year-old good girl rather than a 20 something who was like demonstrably not good. Brandy Razzo says, "I'm like Charles Schultz." I don't know about that. Didn't he just like basically Charlie Brown? Didn't he just have like a little curl in his hair and he's like, I can't remember how the Peanuts characters are drawn. I don't know how close that is. Good grief. Those movies were terrible. Sitting through the Peanuts movies as a child was excruciating. Henry M says your content is very thoughtful and thought provoking. Great, I appreciate it. Thank you. Here's a question: do you think love is as elusive as God? It's very similar because they're both of those things are energies. There are places where God is and where God is not, but you have to think transdimensionally to find it. And love is similar in that sense. I don't know if it means it's as elusive. Like it's pretty easy to find love. You just look for like a mother and her child or young couples together. There are many forms of love. And I think a lot more people find love than find God. God is hidden. Dollar Dickon says, would it be worth settling in the current dating scene? I mean, it depends what you mean by settling. A lot of people end up with someone who they feel was not what they were looking for, but they never were capable of getting what they were looking for. In that case, you should settle. But if you end up with someone who is like objectively worse than you could get, that would have to be because you're calculating that it's just you're getting old and there's no time to wait for better. And that would be a good move too. Settling is only wrong if you still have time and value and you know that if you go back out on the market, you could do better. That's what and you don't wanna settle then, but if you're getting up there in age and someone shows up who's like 60% of what you're looking for and you really settled, well, you didn't have time, you know? It's a negotiation with time, with God. Asura again says, with the 2024 election, I hope the pendulum swings back heavily to conservatism again. Well, guess what? You're going to be disappointed. That's not going to happen because there are no elections. Elections are fake. and everything has been marching steadily towards Satanism since 1962. Um, our government is just infected with these rat people who will do absolutely any evil thing to maintain power over you. So the pendulum doesn't swing. It just goes to the left, and then there's like a ratchet. It just goes like click, 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 and then it just stays. It's like a slippery slope. Elections are fake. Please don't have any hope for the election. Like, if you, it sounds like Asura. It sounds like you would prefer Trump to win. I'm just guessing. You're saying you hope that it swings heavily back to conservatism. Trump could get 99% of the vote, and then CNN would say, "Oh, a penguin sneezed in Alabama, so Biden wins," and then that's what would happen. They have the power to do that. They're not. They don't have to validate the vote. They didn't do it in 2000. They didn't do it in ever. They never did it. Someone asked if I've ever been to New Mexico. No. I was in Arizona, but not New Mexico. Arizona's pretty if you like really sudden mesas coming out of Nebraska type flatness. It's pretty. It's nice. Kitty Daddy says home math 100% unbelievably based. Yeah, I'll just draw like a based meter. Um, I'm pretty good at saying the truth in a way that doesn't get me hurt. Um, just fill that meter all the way up. It's like people know the truth, and you don't really have to say all the words. You just go like, "Did you ever notice this?" And then people know what you mean. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows all the things. Like just me saying it right now, everyone knows what's going on. Some people could screech and screech about how evil I am for saying that, but then they'd have to admit that they know what's going on. So I win. It's just that's how you do that intelligently. Let's see. Realities are says, how do you get an X to lose attention? You definitely messed up that word. How do you get an X to lose attention to you so they can get over you and stop obsessing? Don't respond. Don't respond. So if you have an ex who is like focused on you in a major way and you want them to stop chasing after you, block, ignore, lock your door, don't answer, don't give attention. It'll get extinguished over time. The more that you respond, the more that you go, well, what do you want? The more they will go, oh, hope. So don't give them hope. The Quartering says, I don't know if you do podcasts, but I'd love to have you on some Friday. Inbox me, please. I do podcasts. I prefer if they have some kind of audience or if I get paid or whatever. Like I went on Michael Sartain for free. He's got an audience. I went on a bunch of things for free that have an audience. Someone paid me. Some small podcast paid me. Yeah, I do a bunch of podcasts. I did Playing with Fire. I don't know if that's a podcast. He's got a show or whatever. I did Michael Sartain. I did Warrior's Way. I did a bunch of integral stuff. Yeah, I've done a ton of those. Tan Lee says, how does one decide when to end a relationship and when to keep fighting? You just have to have a prognosis. You have to decide what's going forward in the future, like what changes are possible. And, is it likely to get better? Is it likely to get worse? Is it likely to stay the same? You just have to estimate. You have to understand what's going on in your relationship, what's the good and the bad, what changes could you make, and what's that gonna do for you. If you're stuck in a pattern, you can't change it, and it's bad, then, no one needs that. Specifically with physical incompatibilities, that is a big thing to unpack, Tonley. Um, that can be pretty difficult. In many disagreements, yeah, that can be difficult. It sounds to me like you're more likely to benefit from cutting and running. Oh, Dollar Dickin again says thoughts on the bear versus man in a wood scenario. I just released a video on that. Should just go watch it. Go on the quartering, Stefan Buttle says. Okay, I'll just make a note. The quartering. I'm sure it'll be entertaining. Coobs 1010. Coobs. I like the funny names. Coobs 1010. People have such entertaining names. Two questions. Where would you put thinking behind poker on your levels chart? And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Harry Potter, but would you call Snape a simp and or cuck? I'm not familiar with Harry Potter, so I don't know how to refer to Snape. He was like a guy who was like part bad and part good, I guess. I don't know if he's a simp or a cuck. Um, your question, where would I put the thinking behind poker on the levels chart? Anyone at any level can think about poker. You have to be able to understand what's going on in other people's minds and good at poker today. So you have that has to be at least, I would say at least level 4. Like people who are excellent at poker, they look to me like they're mostly at level 5 or above, where they are thinking about what are the qualities of my opponent? What kind of person is this, and what how might that make him think differently from me? It seems like you need that kind of skill to be good at poker, and at level 3 or 4, that would be hard. Reeve Cody says, "Can I get a shout out to a small time rapper, Meta Heart on YouTube?" I mean, does that count? Like Meta Heart? I'll write it for you since you gave me 20 bucks. I don't know who that is. I can't really endorse them or anything. But if you want me to shout them out, I guess if you like small time rappers and you think the name Meta Heart indicates excellent rap, then maybe you should try listening. Davey says, with someone just starting a date, is there a good way to tell when you should settle or continue dating? When do you know you found the right fit or are just settling because it's the best you have had until then? It's a great question. It's hard to quantify. It's difficult to quantify. I would say that you have to think about if you go back into the dating pool, if you abandon what you're doing and you go back into the dating pool, you have to think about what are the chances that you're going to do better. I don't know how to quantify that. It depends where you live. It depends what you have to offer. It depends the person that you have. Um, but in general, if you live in like a suburban area outside of a city and you've got someone who has most of what you want and there's a few problems, but they're tolerable, it probably is not smart for most people to go, "Oh, I can do better." That's like a work through it thing. But if you really are struggling every day and, you're miserable and you're still 25 or whatever, that's time to move on. I hope that answer is I know it's really complex. It's a really, really complex question that you asked. You have to understand like how much time you have left. Is it very little? Is it a medium amount? Is it a lot? And then, how much value are you getting? Is it most? Is it half? Is it like not very much? Because if you've got very little time left and you've got someone who's like, you know, barely at the minimum and you leave and try again, like what are the chances of you moving up? If you're younger, you have more time to improve yourself and try new people and, less reason to tolerate what you don't like. Thoreau Astor says, Are you familiar with Joseph Campbell? Not really. Thoughts on his four functions of mythology? Oof, I guess I got to Google it. Are our societal problems called by breakdown of those functions? Okay, let me just Google it. Four functions mythology. Oh my god, this is way too hard. The mystical function, cosmological, sociological, and pedagogical. Sounds good. I don't have time to learn about it on the live. I mean, our societal problems are definitely caused by a breakdown of like a unified way of thinking about things. So I suppose it seems like that probably has something to do with it. Mr. Man Dude says, Woman brought up the man versus bear thing and picked bear. I said that was insulting. She said not wanting to be insulted was entitled. That's how it goes. Yep. And I was denying women's trauma. That's a feelings based argument. Usually like her otherwise thoughts, time to run. I mean, if a woman picks bear in the man versus bear thing, that's a strong indication that she forms her opinions of reality based on her experiences and her imagination about her likely experiences and the likely experiences of other women, rather than forming her opinion based on like mathematical probabilities of what's actually likely to happen. That's something that's common but also difficult. So it's not a great sign. Like it's not a great sign that it doesn't really matter what you've gone through. Like having a bad experience doesn't change the numbers of life. Like if you've been in an armed robbery, for example, and you have really bad feelings about whatever kind of person robbed you, it doesn't mean that you get to take that kind of person and just say, "Well, now I'm afraid of all of them and I need to apply this to all of them because those are my feelings." It's like there's still mathematical realities about how likely that is to happen to you. If people can't recognize that, it means they're not capable of being rational. That's what my video response to that was about. So it's not necessarily time to run, but it does show that she's thinking that way. Chasing Paganini. In Self Maximize, you said if you can't get to the top of a group that you're in, find a group you can get to the top of. Could you give examples? Yeah, like sometimes people are in a big city and they can't really compete, and then they move to a small town and they're really cool in the small town. Sometimes, so when I was, I can't remember how old, maybe 10 or 11, I was not very good at baseball. I was playing baseball and I was like the worst baseball player in my age bracket. So the organization decided to move me down to a lower age bracket because I was on the border. I was like, it was like, I think it was like 11, 12, 13, 10, and I was like 11 and a half or something. And so rather than put me in this group, they put me in this group. And then I remember the coach saying that I was a star player. And I remember understanding at the time, well, like, I'm the oldest kid here, so of course I'm gonna be better than all the kids who are younger than me, and it's like I couldn't compete over here. So, that gave me an advantage, comparatively, and it's like being a big fish in a small pond. If you are not succeeding somewhere, go somewhere that you can succeed. You just gotta kinda admit what your strengths are. Krilp. Krilp says, What's the most impressive animal you could beat up? I don't know. I'm not sure if I could take a wolf. Like, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm not sure if I could handle a wolf. Maybe if I had a stick or a club or something. Probably most dogs. Probably like a pig or a warthog. Some guys think they can beat a lion or a small bear or something. I wouldn't go that far. Maybe like one of the smaller apes, not a chimpanzee, not a gorilla. The most impressive animal you could beat up. It's pretty easy to beat up cows. You can go cow tipping, and they just kind of like stand there and they're asleep. And then you can just push them over if that counts as beating them up. But then again, you said impressive and not large, and you just kind of like walk up behind the cow and just give it a shove. And they call it cow tipping. Like they sleep standing up, and then you shove them, and they just go, you know. I don't know if cows are impressive animals, and they and then they freak out, and then the farmers get really mad. That's like people who live out in the sticks will do that when they're really bored. They get drunk and push over cows. I don't know. The most impressive animal, maybe an orangutan. I don't know. Maybe not. They seem strong. Njorwald says, "Are levels 8, 9 actually useful to society beyond personal enlightenment?" Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The higher levels of thinking are very useful to society as long as they are plugged in correctly. Like the reason that I'm so good at life coaching is because people will come to me with like a wide variety of problems. And what I do is I just sort of dig deeper into their experience where they're thinking about, X, Y, and Z, and they never really like bothered to think about the deeper aspect of it, whatever negative X, Y, and Z. And I just have this ability to, with very little effort, dig into the deeper aspects of their experience. And that's it's very helpful in life coaching. It can be helpful in a lot of jobs and a lot of it's helpful in parenting and things like that. So yeah, for sure they're useful to society, but not if you're a janitor. It just depends where you are and what you're doing. Civilizations are built by less than 8 9. Yeah, of course. Like civilizations are, you can get to the whole skyscraper phase with people who are mostly like the managers are at level 5 and the middle managers are at level 4 and the construction workers are at like 4 3 or whatever. You can build like great societies that way for sure, but when it comes to the human condition and human experience, you've got to go higher than that to be able to work on that. This is just like building physical reality, and this is like building people and building the mind. So yeah, they're useful. Mike Johnstone says, "Thank you for your work. You've inspired me to take a much deeper dive into psychology and spirituality." Very good. Thank you, Mike. I'm glad to hear it. That's really what I'm doing. Take the deeper dive. Take the dive and find out what happens and clench your teeth. It's going to be weird. What are some of the most common choosing signals women give? I think the most common one is just like looking at you when they don't have to. This is something that men miss a lot. Like when a woman is looking in one direction and then looks at you, especially if she's smiling really quick, and then looks back. I think a lot of guys see that and then they dismiss it and they go, "Oh, she's just being nice or whatever." And then the women will go home and go like, "Well, why didn't he respond?" Um, I think that that's one of the most common signals is just like visual acknowledgement because women know that they don't visually acknowledge like huge numbers of guys. They see. men all day, and they don't look at them and smile, and they're not polite. And then there's like one guy that they look at, and they in her mind, she's going, "This is the only guy that I've deliberately looked at all day. Surely he's going to notice that." And the guy goes, "What was that all about?" And goes home and misses it. Um, Again, what you're looking for is she adding energy to the interaction, or is she subtracting it? Like, is she making it easier to talk to her? Is she presenting her attention to you? Um, or is she just like waiting for you to leave? Man Singh says, "Is it better to live in Canada, NA, or Italy, EU?" I guess NA means North America. I don't know, dude. What's the difference between Canada and Italy? I don't know anything politically about Italy. Canada sounds bad. Canada sounds like all these lakes and stuff up here. Canada's big, and then you have the USA. There's Texas and Florida and Maine. Um, Canada sounds pretty bad right now. It sounds like they're gonna start throwing people in jail for having bad opinions, and they're, uh, euthanizing people or whatever. Like, it sounds terrible. I don't know how true it is. Uh, but I don't know anything about what's happening in Italy, so can't really help you there. Okay. The only one of these that's still going is Mike Johnstone. Mike Johnstone. He gave me a good donation. He just said, "Thank you for your work. You've inspired me to take a much deeper dive into psychology and spirituality," which I recommend you all do. Okay. Not a whole lot of interest today. Someone says, "Do not redeem, sir." I know the meme. Canada turned into a dump. Yeah. Canada sounds bad. Haha, can confirm. Yep. Okay. So I'm getting some uh, confirmation about Canada. Jamie Rush. Who I'm just gonna click on this profile. It looks like I guess I can't click on the profile. I don't know how YouTube works. Jamie Rush, it appears to be a girl, says he's 100% right about women looking at guys. This glancing thing is like the little glance that you are confused about might mean everything. If a woman is looking at you with no real reason to do that, probably take a risk. Italy is actually pretty cheap. That sounds good. Trudeau passed a law to jail you for hate speech online. Yeah, that's what I heard. Thoreau Astor says, "You've talked about God equals math, deep structure, natural law, connections between thermodynamics and ethics, morality, virtue equals climb the entropy gradient." Again, a really big question. God equals math is, I talked about corn and plants and how God is manifests in the physical manifestation of things. And Thoreau Astor is asking about natural law, like our behavior should match the physics of what makes things happen, what makes things work. And ethics, morality, virtue equals climb the entropy gradient. Like, yeah, there are spirals that are like upwards and downwards. There's growth and decay, and it's like sin. It's like when they in the Bible when they talk about sin, they talk about it's basically behaviors that cause decay and loss and sadness, where you think you're getting something, but it really doesn't work for you. And so, yeah, morality is what creates the development of the things that we value. And that's kind of mathematical and built into the universe. I don't know how to elaborate on that though. I'm just going to agree with you that, yeah, morality does equal um, climbing the entropy gradient. It's like away from this decay and loss and falling apart and chaos. Martin Durkin says, "You seem to be back. The home math we all know and love. Glad to have you back." Yeah, I was just taking a break. I had to go to the woods. I had to go hang out in the woods and look at trees and stuff. I don't like computers. I don't like social media. My whole job is social media, and I don't like it. T-Bone Dog Walk San Francisco says everyone here should spend some time listening to Patrice O'Neill on Opie and Anthony. Yeah, Patrice O'Neill. Um, yeah, I think he died in 2011 or something, but he said some good stuff before he died. He's a big fat guy. He died of diabetes. I'm pretty sure. Brendan 5 says, "Is it acceptable to approach women in customer service situations if she think you gave you a hint, or is that always a bad idea?" You gotta be really sure. You gotta really have a lot of skill because she's captive. So if a woman is in a customer service situation and she is like behind a counter and she can't leave because she's on the clock, she's getting paid, and you are there and you're like, "Oh, I think that she likes me." Like, you better be really, really sure because otherwise, like, what is she gonna do? Tell you to go to hell and have a bad encounter and risk upsetting you at her job? Like, that's how she's making her money. So, a situation where she can't leave because she's obligated to be there, which is either her job or she's on the subway or something, those are bad times to determine who's interested in you and who's not. The best way to determine, who is looking at you unnecessarily is if you're in a place where she has absolutely no obligation to look at you or talk to you, but she's choosing to. Here, she has an obligation. So you have to have some kind of piece of information to know whether or not her attention towards you is an obligation or voluntary. And that can be very tricky because your imagination will make it whatever you want it to be. All right. Baxter Maxter says, "What tough questions should I ask myself to find an LTR? Is a brief walk and coffee good enough for a first date?" It's good enough if she feels like it is. I've had a lot of good first dates like that. Um, Tough questions to find a long-term relationship is like, do you want kids? How many? Where do you want to live? How much money do you make? How do you share bills? Like all of that tough stuff, all the really tough things about relationships and how they work and what's important to you and what's valuable to you. Um, those things are what you've got to get through before you commit. You've got to know those things because otherwise, if you end up having a lot of disagreements, like figure that out the earlier the better. But a brief walk and coffee is good enough for a first date if the girl decides so. Like there's a lot of TikTok girls who say that you need to spend a certain amount on a date. Not everyone's like that. Cole Lecky says, "Hey Chet, how's the rice basement going?" I don't know why it's a rice basement. Rice. He says, "How's the rice basement?" I guess there's rice in it, probably. It's really dingy in here. Glad you're feeling better. Thank you. Kitty Daddy says, "What kind of time scale are men working with? Assuming women are done at 35, men 45, 50 by 60, they're irredeemably old, big ick, gold diggers only." Okay, good question. Let's see if I can fit it in here. I might go early today. 45 minutes seems fine. What kind of time scale are men working with? Today, with the culture that we have, if this is 18, right? A lot of men, if this is 18 and this is 30, and this will be 40, and this will be 50. The amount that they're willing to commit probably peaks like somewhere around here after 30. Um, and of course, down here it's going to be really, really low. So like 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. You've got a lot of women reporting that these younger men are all the same and don't want to commit. And they all want to play the field and they all want to try again and everything. And then as they start edging towards 30, like more and more of them are willing to commit. And then after 30, I would say like that's the best time. And of course, the older you go, I think the more willing they're going to be. And there's a certain point at which you can like get maximum commitment without like the disgustingness of old age. So for men, I would say the average, like the average American guy, probably is, men used to get married in their early and mid 20s and not anymore. It's been pushed up by quite a bit. And I think the average age of marriage is over 30 now. So a lot of men, it seems like almost all men believe that they should spend this time getting what they can get and having the experiences that they can have, and that commitment is for later. Um, that's what I'm hearing from women anyway. Deep State says, for those who want to deep dive into natural law, check out the work of Kurt Doolittle. Yeah, I know someone who knows him. Um, be forewarned, he writes in sentences like a proper high functioning autist. Oh no. Also, will you draw the Giga Chad? Okay, I'm gonna draw the Giga Chad and then go for the night because I don't know, just like tired again. There we go. The Mac and Murphy haircut. It's the lips, and then ouch on his t-shirt. I think it was like a athletic, if I remember correctly. And then he's got his arms like doing weird stuff. I think that's the Giga Chad, right? Doing his dance. All right. I think that's probably going to be it for tonight. Okay, I got one more. Ernesto. If I need to become someone else due to the fact my current self is not efficient enough, how can I change without the imposter syndrome? Ernesto, I remember you from last time. I think that your questions are a little, I don't know how to say it, like beyond what you can fit in the text box. If I need to become someone else due to the fact that my current self is not efficient enough, so you need to self improve. How can I change without the imposter syndrome? Like you got to get proof, you know. If you want to get stronger and then you pick up 200 pounds and you've never done that before, then you've gotten stronger. And if you want, women to like you more, and go out and you get genuine attention from some hot girl that now like women like you more. If you want to make a certain amount of money per year, you go out and ask for a raise or apply for a job. And once you make that amount of money per year, then you've done it. Proof. It's proof, 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 proof. Have you done it? Have you accomplished it? Because if you accomplish something and you tell yourself, "Oh, I'm an imposter," you accomplished it. It happened. It physically happened. Like I'm holding a pen. What good would it do to say, "Well, I'm only holding a pen for some excuse. I'm an imposter. I'm not justified to have this. I bought it. They sent it to me. It's proof." Just look at the proof of the things that you get. Okay, I think that's a perfect place to stop. This is thank you for asking me about some of the places what I've been at. Thank you for the validation, and thank you. What's your name for agreeing with me about women looking? I love it when people tell me that I'm right. It reminds me that I am doing good stuff. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good night. Have a good night.